Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Welcome back, my people. So happy to be back. I'm on camera today. Ooh. Drop me a comment if you're tuning in live. Drop me a comment in the chat. Let me know if you can hear me properly, everything correct. Thank you for tuning in, my people. Today, it's open mic. Let me drop the link of if you want to join and express yourself. Just click on the link. Join and express yourself. Yeah, we're listening. What do you think is the root cause behind all this immigration, mass immigration to the USA, Canada, Europe? I mean, Canada right now. Tell me, what do you think is the root cause? I am going to tell you my list. I've written down a list. We're gonna go from 0 to 5, which means I'm going to give you my top 5 reasons, my top 5 root causes behind refugees, immigration to Canada, USA, Europe, and the rest of what they call the Western world. All right? Let me stop the music. My people, welcome back. Your favorite Ausares, Louise Uwacu in the building. My people, today we are on Friday, January 30th, 2026. We're going to start in English, proceed in French, and end the show in KinyaRwanda. What is it? What was I going to say? Yeah. So please share, like, subscribe. Oh yeah, I was going to post the link to the studio because it's open mic. So that is the link to the studio. If anybody want to come in and express yourself, you don't even have to be on camera. It's up to you. And you can just express yourself. And we're going to talk about the things that nobody wants to talk about because everybody wants to talk about, refugees, illegal immigration, the crisis in the United States, the ICE, And then, of course, we're going to talk about some of the solutions that we can suggest. Some of the solutions that we can suggest to this crisis, if it is a crisis. Now, the inspiration came from obviously what is happening. I'm in Canada, and this immigration thing keeps coming in. And I also came to Canada as a refugee from Rwanda. Where is Rwanda? Rwanda is a tiny little country at the heart of Africa, and it's notorious for war, massacres, genocide. And right now we have a criminal dictatorship that I have called the Kagamistan in Rwanda. So I came to Canada as a refugee because I don't want to live under a criminal dictatorship. That is the fundamental reason. And the criminal dictatorship continues on today. The criminal dictatorship of the Kagamistan in Rwanda has actually expanded and exported the war to Congo, currently killing, raping, plundering in Congo. And there was a peace agreement between Congo, Rwanda, the Washington Accords, President Trump, trying to bring peace, trying to have Rwanda and Congo go to peace. So the criminal dictatorship in Rwanda hates anybody who can think for themselves, hates freedom of speech. They kill people for thinking for themselves. They are tribalist. They will only favor their own tiny little clan, little tribal groups. One of my inspiration into writing my new book, Imana East, Know Thy Divine Rights, to rise above the tribalist and to know our divine rights and to be in unity with our divinity. So that's why I became a refugee, so I can live in a free country where I'm allowed to exist and to do whatever it is that I want to do and to express myself and to think freely, something that you can never do in a dictatorship. So this topic of immigration and refugees is obviously, close to my heart because I am a refugee. Well, right now I'm a Canadian citizen. I have become a Canadian citizen because I've been in Canada now for like over 20 years. It's actually getting close to 30. So I'm no longer a refugee, but that was the beginning of it. You can't forget where you be coming from. So the first thing that I want to say is that I am grateful. I'm grateful to Canada, to the Canadians, my fellow Canadians, for welcoming in, welcoming me and my people in. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for Canada giving me the space to be free, to go to school, to think for myself, and eventually to become an entrepreneur, to create my own talk show. As you know, you and I talk show went all the way was broadcast on Canadian television on Shaw before it was bought by Rogers. So I'm very grateful for my experience in Canada and for Canada allowing me to do everything that I've been able to do, to become a writer. This is my third book. So I'm grateful for that, and I have my Kenyan bracelet. I'm also so grateful to Kenya for hosting us. Um, Always will be grateful to Kenya for being so advanced, so civilized, so hosting so many refugees in the region, the African, you know, the African countries around Kenya who have issues. They are always running to Kenya, you know. So actually, I have a map of Africa in the back. I think I need it in my front. All right, I think I'm gonna bring my map of Africa in the front so I could put it there and then be looking at it, be looking at all these countries as we speak about them. So today I'm gonna talk about things that they don't want to talk about when they think about immigration. People over here getting tired of immigration. So let's get to the root cause, because just being tired of immigration, being tired of seeing people, mass immigration, refugees coming to your country is not enough. What if we have to address the root cause of why are there refugees? Why are we even running away from our own countries and coming to these other countries? And if we don't address that, we are not addressing the real problem, and it is actually not going to be solved. And then before I even get into it, I would also like to be thankful and grateful to America, because America is pretty much Canada. Canada, America, same country, really. The artificial border between the USA and Canada. It's an artificial border, right? And what I would like to say about America is that America is inspiring. That's one reason why people may even want to be coming to your country, because America is inspiring on many levels. I wish that we could build our own countries, that we could build our own uh, African continent, and make it so that your country, can you imagine, you are the country that people see and they want to come to that country, and they because they know that they are going to get better opportunities. It's about opportunity, coming from these criminal dictatorships which are not giving their own people opportunities. So you wish to come to a country that will give you the opportunity to be successful. We just saw Nicki Minaj with President Trump. I mean, she came here, she testified talking about how she came here as a child, and look at all the opportunities that she has gotten for being in America and being determined to succeed. But you also have to be in a country that allows you to succeed. So you want to be that country that people look at, that there is going to be opportunity and I can be so much more than what I can be in my home country. And you want to be that country that people want to run to, so much so that they're even willing to run there, risking their life, paying all their savings to get to your country. And then when you even want to kick people out of your country, they're like, we don't want to go, we don't want to go. They fight to stay in your country. That is a sign of a great country that is definitely better than your own home country. So this is something that we need to recognize, that even the fundamental reason why people want to be in America is because of the opportunity that they see, and that their dreams that they see. For many people, the American dream is alive, so I wish that we would be able to build a country that nobody wants to run away from. But so far we export refugees because of the horrible leadership and horrible politicians who are puppets, criminal puppets of bigger powers, and who sell out their own country and make it impossible for citizens to live in, nationals to live in the country, so much so that they have to run away and become refugees. My country, my of origin, Rwanda, is notorious for silencing any dissenting voices, any free thinkers, for exiling political opposition, any free thinkers, and for assassinating and killing anybody who says anything that the regime does not like. The country forces us to become refugees. But guess who brought these criminal dictators into power? These criminal dictators who force us to run away from our own countries. Guess who brings them into power? So that's one of the root causes that we are going to talk about. So, welcome back to You and I Talk Show. Share, like, subscribe, and let's get into it. Let's talk about all the things that they don't want to talk about, and let's see if we can help bring about the solutions. All right, my people, thank you very much. Share, like, subscribe. Let's get the show started. All right, my people, welcome, welcome. Through the intro music, I had the opportunity to put the map of the African continent in front of me, so now I can see it. Be talking about the countries while I'm looking at them because I can't look in this back picture. It's not clear. The African. I think my hairstyle is the African map in itself, actually. So the root causes that nobody wants to talk about. Number 0. You know how I'll be always starting with 0, right? Even when I talk about these know thy divine rights, I start from divine right number 0 all the way to 10. Yeah. So, number 0, the fundamental of why this crisis of mass immigration is happening to Canada, to USA, to the Europeans, and other people who are known as the Western world. Number 000 reason is their own corrupt politicians. Yes. The corrupt politicians in Canada, for example, where I am, the liberals who have been in power for the last over 10 years, the corrupt politicians, they are the fundamental root cause behind this crisis. They don't care. They have actually sold out their own people. In my new book, Imana, to Know Thy Divine Rights, I'm actually questioning that these corrupted politicians in the Western world have sold out their own countries, and they're actually starting to make African dictators look like amateurs. Because why are Africans running away from their own countries is because the corrupt African politicians sell out their own country, make it impossible, unlivable for their own nationals to live in their own country. So they have to run away, they have to go abroad to become successful. So these corrupt politicians of the West, in case of Canada, the liberals specifically, who have been in power for over 10 years now, the past 10 years, they have destroyed their own country. They have sold out their own country. And they are trying, they hate their own people for being free. The freedom that we look for, the freedom that we came here for, they hate it on their own people. They don't want their own people to be free. They hate the fact that their own people have become free. And they hate the fact that their own people have nice jobs where they make good money, where they have good working conditions. So they want to import in new immigrants that they can actually pay less and abuse more because they're coming from dictatorship, or they're coming from poverty, or they're coming from places where they don't really have freedom. So the Western world, which has already become free and which has campaigned to get great working conditions, great pay, they don't want to pay them anymore. They don't want them to live in freedom anymore. So what will they do? They import in new immigrants. They go out of their way to bring in new immigrants so that they can pay them less, they can abuse them more, and then replace their own local population with new immigrants that they can abuse and that they can pay less. And they will take it because where they're coming from is even worse than that. So, the number one, number zero reason of this crisis is created by their own corrupt politicians in the West. The Trudeaus of Canada, the Starmer in the UK, Mark Carney in Canada. And it actually feels like, in the US, they had slavery and then they liberated themselves. And then the solution for some of these big people is to export the labor or the industries to still get the cheap labor, to take the jobs, let's say to China, where China is still oppressing and enslaving its own people so that they can pay less because people have become free in the West and can't be so exploited anymore. So they will destroy their own country to somehow bring back slavery by flooding their own countries with mass immigration and then creating a surveillance society, a dictatorship. They are trying to create dictatorships even in their own countries. And then they will create chaos and bring war and civil war in their own countries. What we see in the USA right now happening is actually very, very dangerous because these politicians will go as far as create a war, a civil war, based on these false crises that they have created themselves. So the root cause of the problem is their own corrupt politicians. hmm That's what I see. That's my analysis. So if you have other analysis, you tell me. But that is number one. Mhm. Oh, sorry, number zero, because we're starting from zero. And then number one other reason. Number one other reason. Why do these people even need immigrants to come and work in these countries? The other number one reason that I see of this crisis, the other number one root cause is feminism. Yeah, man, I am not a feminist. I am an Imanaist. I know my divine rights. The feminine and the masculine are supposed to be in balance. That is the Ma'at, the divine law, balance between the feminine and the masculine. Now, the feminism and the feminist, they have gone too far. They have gone way off, way off, way off, and they have created an unbalance. And then I think the feminism and the feminists have caused people not to have children, not to have babies, not to create babies for these societies. So if they don't have children, if they don't have babies, then they will be replaced because they're not creating the population that they need to sustain their civilization. Yeah. And all these abortions. And then, of course, they want women to get married to women, men to get married to men. That is still not creating no babies. So, if you are a country, a nation, a civilization, and you're not creating babies, you're not creating a new population, what do you think is going to happen to your nation, to your civilization? It's going to die. So because of this, then they don't have the population, they don't have the babies, then they must bring in new people to pretty much replace them. They would have been replaced by their own children, but since they're not creating their own children, more people in Canada have dogs and cats than have children. So what do you think is gonna happen? And then, of course, they get flooded with immigration by the corrupt politicians that we just saw. And then they're like, we're getting replaced. Well, well, yeah. So that is my other number one root cause, my other reason behind this that not so many people want to talk about. How about you talk about that? Your corrupt politicians, the feminism, and too much liberalism. I just heard that in France now, they voted or they are trying to vote or something like that, that they will, that marriage is actually that they don't have to have sex between married people now. That is not a requirement. And then I'm there, I'm like, eh? Government saying that married people do not have to have sex. And I'm like, what? Is it a brother sister marriage? Like, what the hell? Confusion. Total confusion. In my culture, in my language, kurongora. Kurongora is getting married, but at the same time, it's a word that has double meaning. To to put it in your subconscious, kurongora. At the same time, it's getting married, it's marriage. At the same time, it's having sex. It's putting into your subconscious that that having sex is between people who are married, and getting married is having sex. And these Europeans who already have all these problem of not making babies, they're now voting and talking about marriage doesn't have to include sex. And then tomorrow they'll be wondering how and why. Hmm? So that would be the other number one root cause and reason behind the whole refugee immigration crisis. Number two, the destruction of other nations, the destruction of our nation. If my country is at peace and have good leaders, I don't have to run away from my country. But if my country is getting destroyed, and it is getting destroyed on a higher level by these countries, let's take, for example, Canadian mining companies which go to Africa sponsoring rebel groups so that they can kill us or that they can turn us into refugees just so they can get to have maximum exploitation of our countries, our very rich countries. Africa is the richest continent, but we get sabotaged. The criminal dictatorship that is currently in power in Rwanda, in Uganda, came into power because the US, the UK, they helped them come into power. So they help these criminal dictators come into power by destroying our nations. And then they turn so many people into refugees. And then they're wondering why we're turning up in their own countries. We turn up in their own countries because we have heard that you have freedom over here, that we will be free over here. And we're running away from dictatorships, criminal dictatorships, the destruction of our nations, which on a higher level were being destroyed by these countries that we run to. But we're thinking that maybe we will have peace in your own country, in these countries that don't want peace for us in Africa. Maybe we will have peace in your country. So we will come to your country and have peace and have freedom, because on a higher level, you participate in the destruction of our nations and you install criminal dictatorships that make our countries unlivable. So the destruction of other nations is also part of the root cause behind this immigration. You destroy other nations out there, their people run away, and then they're going to run to your country and bring some of the stuff that you don't want. So another solution would be, how about you stop destroying other people's countries? You know, how about you stop destroying other people's countries? And uh, Canadians, for example, Canada is so rich. Why can't the Canadian mining companies mine in Canada and do all their explorations in Canada? They have so much untapped wealth. But no, they're gonna go destroy other our nations out there, create wars in Congo, Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, and turn us into refugees. And then we turn up in their country and they're like, yeah. So you want to resolve the immigration issue from the root? Stop the destruction of other nations. How about you become independent? Because right now you depend on going out there to exploit these other nations. You see France invading Africa, bombarding Africa, and imposing president. They did it in Cote d'Ivoire. What about Libya? A crisis created by the West, destroying our nations, and then getting surprised. The people are running away, coming to the West. So it has to stop. The West has to become independent. The whole idea of independence, like, really, who is dependent? You depend on other nations' wealth. The USA depends on Congo's minerals and then turns around and complains about Congolese immigrants. All right, then don't do not assassinate the leaders that the people have chosen for themselves. How many of our great leaders have been assassinated by your secret services, by the US, by Canada, by the Europeans? Lumumba in Congo, assassinated by the CIA, the Canadians, the Europeans, collaborating and then installing a local criminal dictator that is their puppet. So that has to stop. That is the other thing that nobody wants to talk about. Number three reason: dictators in Africa, dictators in so many of these places where we come from, because these dictators, they don't care. They have sold out their own people. They will oppress their own people. They will enrich themselves and only themselves. They are tribalists, giving opportunities just to some tribes and not to the rest of the country, making it impossible for the nationals to exist in their own land. So the dictators, the criminal dictators in Africa and beyond, are the reason why people run away from that. Because one of our divine rights is the divine right to freedom. I have the divine right to freedom. And if I can't have freedom in my own country, I have the divine right to travel the world and go where I can be free. So dictators back home are making it impossible. China is a communist dictatorship. That's why Chinese people are going to run away from China. There's no Americans running away from America to become refugees in China because no freedom. You can't run away from freedom to go and live in a communist dictatorship, but you will run away from a communist dictatorship to come and live in freedom. So dictators back home in Africa and the rest of the world where they have these dictators are the root cause behind this. And they give no opportunities, even when it's not a dictatorship. Like, for example, in the case of India, which is a democracy, but still the poverty is so much because of opportunities, inequalities in access to opportunities. So people will run away from their countries for better opportunities. The same way that um, the Europeans, they ran away from Europe because actually they were oppressed when they ran away from Europe to come to Africa, to come to South Africa. They had no opportunities. They were living in misery and poverty. The Europeans who came to America to take over America, they're living in poverty and oppression in Europe. They're trying to flee their own dictatorship. That's why the Europeans who came to America declared freedom and independence towards the European monarchy, which had come for colonization and exploitation. And the Europeans, to free themselves, well, they declare independence. So you have to understand. Otherwise, why would they leave Europe? Today, people are running towards Europe, but you have Europeans who ran away from Europe, came to South Africa. Europeans who ran away from Europe came to America. Why? In the same way that they've been talking about, oh, go back to your country. Okay. So the Europeans in South Africa, are they going to go back to their country? Are they going to go back to Europe? Because Europe is doing better now. Are they going to be deported? Because when they came, maybe they were also illegal immigrants. Did they have passports? Did they have visas? Did they have permission to come to Africa, to South Africa? No, they didn't. So they will be considered as illegal immigrants. Are they going to get deported? Are they going to go back to Europe? What about those who came to America and Canada? Will they ever go back? So recognize the hardships of your own origins and the dictatorship of your own origins that you also ran away from to come to these countries, and recognize that that's what the rest of the human population is also looking forward to. Number 4 reason: ignorance. Ignorance, ignorance, ignorance. People are ignorant and they don't really know, or they don't want to learn. They don't want to do their best. And so they will seek the solution out of themselves instead of seeking the solution inside themselves. So ignorance, and once you even get out of that ignorance, and then you come here, maybe you get some knowledge, and you realize that, oh, actually, I ran away from the richest continent on the planet. It's very hard to go back because maybe you haven't made enough money to go back home, or maybe back home is still a criminal dictatorship, so you can't go back home. But meanwhile, people back home are still trying to live because, thanks to ignorance, they still think that out there it's richer, it's better, you know? It's richer, it's better. They don't know that even people in the West are suffering. So they think, oh, money is growing on trees. Even I was shocked when I came to Canada and money was not growing on trees. Like, I actually had to work. And then you think that white people are rich. All white people are rich. In Africa, when you see a white person, you think they have money, but it's also ignorance, because part of why these white people tourists may have money is because of the exchange rate. Like $1 right now is a thousand Rwandan francs. So your money, the moment you step to in Rwanda, your money is multiplied by 1,000 times. So ignorant and poor people in Rwanda will see white people, Westerners, and think that they are rich because their $1 becomes 1,000. So when they're in Africa, they seem rich. They seem rich because even if you go with $100, you will impress. It becomes 100,000, and it becomes a fortune to the local people. So through the ignorance, people don't even realize that it's because of the exchange rate, and nobody even questions why. Why is your money worth 1,000 of my money? Does this mean that our people have to work 1,000 times more to earn $1? This is how you hear that, oh, the so and so country is living off just $1 a day. You even calculating it in dollars. Well, $1 a day is a thousand Rwandan francs, or even more. A thousand. How many people make that money in a day? Very few. We recently had a very young woman complaining that she had 300 francs on her. No job, nothing, no opportunity. So imagine you show up with $100. So it perpetuates the ignorance, and it perpetuates the illusion that white people are rich and they're coming from rich countries. So if we want to be rich, we need to go to their countries. And the last one, number 5, so we can end there because there's so many other reasons that we could go into. Of course, right? You add on to the list. If we wanted to go on, we could go on. The other reason that I am blaming Hollywood. Hollywood, all these movies, yo, all these movies, grow up watching movies, watching how life is out there. They make you think that, whoa, this is the place to be. Your country is a shithole country. And if you want to get out of the shithole country, this is, this is the better world is out here. So for many, many years, Hollywood has created content, films, television that show you an illusion, and then you believe in the illusion, and then you go to the West pursuing the illusion. They sell you a dream. So you're like, I need to go get my dream on, get my success on. You know, there's nothing shows you that, oh, you don't have to go. You don't have to go. So, my people, those are my top 5 or 6, as I have given to you, root causes and reason for the crisis behind refugees and immigration to the USA, Canada, Europe, and other places that are seen as the Western world. There's this fear that I see in the Western world. People fear being replaced, and I'm like, okay, it's the fear of being colonized and oppressed, and this fear is also based on the fact that people came from Europe and replaced the population over here. People went from Europe and colonized and oppressed other people in other countries. So people in these countries are like, what if this is what's going to happen to us? Like deep down, they know it's not a good thing to go out there, colonize people, and oppress people. So there's this deep fear that it will happen to them. And if you want to resolve that, the number one solution is the corrupt politicians of the West. The corrupt politicians of the West. The Western world has to choose better politicians who will serve their own countries and who will put their own country's interest, their own people interest as priorities, because right now they are only concerned on enriching themselves. They're only concerned on pretty much plundering their own countries, exploiting their own countries as well. And they don't care about their own people. So if they prioritize their own people and they prioritize their own people's interest, they will be able to resolve these problems. If they get off the feminist and the feminism madness, they will be able to have more babies, create more population, and then they don't need to import in people to work for them. If they stop destroying other nations, nobody will run from their own nation. If they stop supporting criminal dictatorships in Africa, nobody will run from their own nation. All right, my people. So that is my analysis, my view, my observation, my opinions. You are free and you are welcome to share your own. Let me know. Let me know what you think. Let me know in the comments. Oh, Bea, Bea, I see you. Thank you so much for being here. Perfect timing. We're going to move into the French just a little bit and then move into the KinyaRwanda section right away, because I am done giving you my root causes, root reasons behind this refugee immigration crisis and the solutions for ICE and the deportations. Huh? Like Somalia, nobody supports fraud. Nobody supports the fraud that some of these Somalians are involved in the USA. But if we study the history of Somalia, who has military bases in Somalia? Some of the Western countries be having military bases in Somalia. Does any African country have a military base in Europe, in America? But how many military bases does America and do the Europeans have out there? And then they'd be talking about Somalian pirates. But Somalian pirates, if Somalia was allowed to be free, independent, govern themselves, if they were not also mentally colonized and spiritually colonized by Islam, they could free themselves mentally first. The entire continent used to be black. Now we have Arab Islamic occupation in North Africa. Egypt, just a few thousand years ago, was all African, ancient African civilization, and Somalians were part of that civilization. But today, due to all these attacks from the Europeans, from the Arabs, the Christians, the Islamists, our nations get destroyed, and now Somalia is where it's at today. But if Somalia was free, starting from the mind, these waters that you call the Somalian pirates, they would have their own army, they would have their own navy, they would have marines. And so when you pass in their waters, their marines would be able to stop them, to stop you. But they don't have that because of all the history that we could go into some other time. And then now when they stop you, you call them Somalian pirates. But what if it's the Somalian Navy, the Somalian Marines, the Somalian Patrol of the African Ocean? I call it the African Ocean, yo, because the coast is more African than to call it the Indian Ocean. What Indian Ocean? It's the African Ocean. So if Somalians, if you have your vessels in African waters and Somalians stop you, and then you call them Somalian pirates. But what if they are the Somalian Navy, the Somalian Marines, the Somalian Army, simply patrolling their waters and stopping the ships that are in their waters? Meditate on that, my people. All right. Have a great evening. Send me your comments, like, share, subscribe. Let me know your own comments. Let me know your own thoughts. Let's move into French before we move into KinyaRwanda. La famille, merci d'être là. On va passer un tout petit peu en français, ensuite on passe en KinyaRwanda. Aujourd'hui, on est vendredi le 30 janvier 2026. Bienvenue dans le UNI Talk Show. Yo, la famille, merci.